time to talk about some NFL numbers. Super Bowl 59, Eagles, Chiefs. But first, a record AFC championship number for that really close Bills and Chiefs game. I thought it was going to set a record. I thought it would actually get closer to 60 million, ended up around 57.7 million. But if you are the NFL, you have to be happy with the narrative of a record AFC title game, considering that the divisional round and the wild card round were down.
Chiefs-Bills is good enough a matchup to be a Super Bowl, and I'm actually upset that we're not going to be able to get one of those.
Yeah, I mean, earlier on Sunday, Fox, in that NFC title game, the Commanders absolutely got throttled by the Eagles, never really close, around 44.2 million viewers for that game. One of the least watched NFC title games in a while. So do you think an Eagles-Chiefs rematch that was the same game in Super Bowl 57, do you think that's going to deliver for Fox? Can it get to a record number? The one set last year by CBS was around 123 million or so. Does Fox get over that number?
It'll do close. I don't know if it'll go over, but people keep talking, and there's media coverage about Chiefs fatigue this, Chiefs fatigue that. I don't think that's going to happen.
Chiefs fatigue, there is that narrative out there, but this AFC title number was the biggest ever. Easy, by a lot. And it topped last year's number, which was also the Chiefs. You got Taylor Swift back at the Super Bowl. I don't think she's going to be jumping on stage with Kendrick Lamar to share that halftime show at all. But if the game is close, Fox, because you're going to have Tubi, measured by Nielsen, contributing that audience this year. You have 2 Spanish language broadcasts. You have all those NFL digital outlets. The score might actually determine whether it gets over that hump.
Kendrick Lamar is featured on a Taylor Swift song, though, so we could get a rendition of Bad Blood. You don't know.
You're talking over my head at this point with the Kendrick Lamar, Taylor Swift tie-ups. I got to be honest.
Austin, regardless of whether Fox is happy about this matchup, they're happy about the numbers. Fox pulled in record advertising revenue with more than 10 spots going for $8 million a pop.
$8 million for a 30-second spot. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's never happened before. Last year, CBS pulled in about $700 million in revenue. We do not have the final number for Fox yet, but it's going to be higher than that. And the reason this happened, one, there was really high demand. In the upfront, Fox was asking for mid to high sixes, so like 6.5 and up. They saw demand go so quickly that they rocketed up the price. By June, the end of the traditional upfront window, they were sold out about 85% of their advertising. As in every year, some brands do have to come out of the game. Usually it's 5 to 6 for whatever reason. And then that money invested is spread out around other Fox properties. But then Fox can go and resell that number. Part of the reason it got so much higher is for many extenuating circumstances, including the California wildfires, about 10 brands pulled out. So that's a much higher inventory for Fox. And they had a wait list of brands, so they were already ready to go.
You know, talking about the brands that are going to be advertising, something interesting from your piece and in your conversation with Fox's Mark Evans is how there really is a dearth these days of movie studios promoting big feature films at the Super Bowl. That used to be one of the cornerstones, one of the hallmarks of the Super Bowl is you tune in to get that first 30 or 60-second spot for the big summer film or spring film that might be coming out. But the way that social media has evolved and the way in particular that Hollywood has been impacted and how Hollywood delivers its movies these days, he said there aren't a lot of those out there. So what categories can we expect to see a lot of in the Super Bowl?
Well, streaming and studios is the only category that's significantly down. And significant can mean what you want it to. But with most categories, it's either down 1 or 2, up 1 or 2. You saw that a lot. But you're going to see a lot of beverages, telco, tech. Travel is coming back for a while with the pandemic. That was down. QSR, salty snacks, auto, just kind of those feel-good commercials. And what's also interesting is people are spending a lot more money on longer spots this year. So there's multiple 90 and 2-minute commercials, which is more expensive, obviously, than your 8 million 30.
Well, I know over this next week or so, we're going to see a lot of ads, a lot of creative trickle out on social media. Some of the ones I have found funny that we've already seen this week, they're going to do your reprisal of that scene from When Harry Met Sally. You're going to have Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan. I think they're pitching mayonnaise through that commercial.
Hellman's.
It's Hellman's. I'm interested to see what that ad looks like on Super Bowl Sunday. We'll see a lot more of that. I want the funny. I want people to bring the ha-ha. That's how I like to consume my Super Bowl ads.
I always fall for the Budweiser commercials. It's just the heartstrings. And this year we've got a baby Clydesdale.
Oh.
And you mentioned Tubi. Tubi is owned by Fox, obviously, and they'll also be broadcasting the game. But I don't know if you remember 2 years ago, last time Tubi had the Super Bowl, they made their big marketing splash. And they did this trick ad in the fourth quarter where it made everyone think they sat on their remote and the game was gone. They went so beyond viral for that. Tubi knows it can't recreate that energy again. So what it's trying to do instead, and I've only seen the teaser, but there's a full 60-second in there with a couple others likely to come too. And remember, Fox doesn't pay for these. These are just in-game promotions. So that's how Tubi can have these multiples. Oh, look at that. My Adweek background is coming back.
I'm very interested to see the audience that Tubi is able to attract, like what that breakout for the audience is going to be on Tubi. They got a sneaky big audience of people that actually come into Tubi, check out the library of programming there. This is obviously among the first, I'm guessing, of really big live sports events to be on the platform. So I want to see how many people are coming into that fast channel to consume the Super Bowl.
It's Gen Z. It's the younger, quirky demographic. They're doing a whole pregame show. They have the Tubi orange carpet.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different audience.
Well, I know our colleague David Bourne talked about how he goes to Tubi to consume some shows that were airing in the 70s. So it's a very wide demographic of people, I'm guessing, that are going to be coming in.
It's a huge library of content. Austin, we're going to move from football to football.
Love that dad joke transition, Molly.
Oh, I'm not sure if I do. We might not be getting a lot more of those. But our colleague Alex Silverman broke this week that MLS and Apple are making MLS Season Pass available outside of Apple TV for the first time. That's going to be on Comcast Xfinity and DirecTV's packages. What do you make of that?
It's a big deal. The whole point of Apple getting into business with the MLS was that they had everything soup to nuts. It was Season Pass. It was all the games. Everything was located. You had to go to Apple TV Plus to do all this with Major League Soccer. What this means, if they're going outside of the Apple ecosystem, it tells me that the MLS season pass numbers are just not where the league wants them to be, and it's not where Apple wants them to be. So how can they grow it? They're going outside. They're going to some big carriers. They're also bringing back that offer that they had when this deal started about offering Verizon customers, access to season pass. And Molly, it's been well documented. I've talked about it a bunch of times. We don't have viewership numbers. Okay. So this is kind of one of the only metrics we have to go on are those season pass numbers. We don't even really have a true estimate of where those have gone. Okay. So seeing that they want to go outside of the Apple ecosystem shows me that there is some concern there, maybe heading into year 3 of that deal.
And they're doing free trials from February 26th to March 2nd for Comcast, and then from February 26th to March 1st for DirecTV. They're really trying to get people into this ecosystem. Mm-hmm. But what's also interesting to me out of that news is for the first time, they're going outside of the Wednesday, Saturday traditional broadcast, and they're launching that Sunday night package. Again, I would agree with you that they're trying to get more viewership.
Major League Soccer starts in March, and it goes into football season. So for having that Sunday night window, it's really smart. You can highlight some of the bigger matches, maybe put Messi in there in a couple times, some other big teams. And during the summer months, you're really only competing with something like a Sunday night baseball on ESPN. Everything else is kind of done. Your PGA Tour is done. NASCAR's typically done by that time. It's kind of smart. And if they can really get people to come into that Sunday night window and train them to come like, this is when we're going to have our big match. Yeah, numbers that only they're going to see. But maybe it helps people stick around with MLS Season Pass.
Well, and they're also making that Sunday night game. It's going to be some of the top matches. Mm-hmm. It's available for free for Apple TV Plus customers, so free, but you don't have to have Season Pass in addition to it. They're also keeping the season price packages the same. It's $99 if you don't have Apple TV Plus, $79 if you do.
I know they haven't announced a full schedule yet, but one of the matches involves San Diego FC. That's the expansion franchise. Who doesn't like to see San Diego vistas on a Sunday night? Beautiful country out there. All right, Molly, I want to talk a little bit about tennis. We have the numbers for the finals at the Australian Open, men and women. I like bringing this up because I'm always curious about how tennis is going to be doing in majors in this post. Djokovic played at the Aussie Open. He lost in the semifinals. But I want to see where tennis is going to go in the post-Nadal, post-Federer, post-Djokovic era. Who is going to be the face of tennis moving forward? Jannik Sinner, on the men's side, he won his second consecutive Australian Open. That event was down a little bit on the men's side compared to his win last year. Last year, though, 5 sets. This year, straight sets and 3, a win for him. Granted, I mean, these men's and women's finals, they're airing at 3:30 in the morning Eastern time, okay? But they're getting close to 500,000 viewers. So from 3:30 to 6 in the morning to be able to get 500,000 viewers, it's pretty impressive. The more impressive number for me was on the women's side. Early on Saturday morning, you had Madison Keys defeating the defending champion, Ariana Sabalenka. That drew the best Aussie Open women's final since 2021. That was the last time, actually, that they had an American.
It was also a really competitive match, right? Mm-hmm. 3 very close sets. But do you think that we're only going to see viewership increases when an American plays?
I think that's how it's going to be for now. We don't have that dominant player. If Djokovic, he's not retiring. Maybe he can put together some runs. He made it to the semifinals. The semifinals at the Aussie Open for the men were actually more watched than the men's final. So it shows that Djokovic does still have a little bit of drawing power. But as far as U.S. audiences go, they want to see Frances Tiafoe on the men's side. I don't know that Ben Shelton or Taylor Fritz are really going to bring in the audience. And on the women's side, I think there's more room for growth there. Coco Gauff, Jessica Pegula, if you can get some of those women in a final at the future majors, that's where you get the audience numbers.
I was at the 2023 U.S. Open final when Coco Gauff won, and it was truly one of my favorite sports moments ever. It was so emotional. I took my mom. She was like, wow, the tables have turned. You are taking me to the U.S. Open? But we both cried.
Well, we have a couple of months, 4 months until the French Open. It's a really big gap. I know we have some big American events in that time frame. We're talking about Indian Wells out in California. We're talking about the Miami Open. But those really aren't. People are really watching tennis, in the United States at least, for the 4 majors.
Well, in the French Open, this will be the first time Warner Brothers Discovery has the rights.
There's also a discoverability issue there. Okay, are people going to know to go to, whether it's TNT, TBS, or True TV, wherever they are airing these matches? Will they know to go there? It's going to be some struggle there in the numbers.
If you're a tennis fan, you're going to find it, but might be a little harder to draw the casual viewer.
Mollie, last thing we want to get into, you have a piece in the magazine this week looking at some of the bigger media rights deals that are going to be out there in 2025. Some of them we've talked about on this podcast, but you identified some of the bigger ones. What do people really need to keep an eye on?
UFC and Formula One are the 2 biggest ones I'm watching. Then obviously Pac-12, we've talked about Pac-12 plenty of times. We don't need to get into that. But UFC and Formula One are both...
Those are the 2 biggest, yeah.
They're both up for grabs. And then ESPN also has that opt-out window with MLB, which it looks like they're going to use.
First, I want to take the MLB question. If ESPN does opt out, maybe looking for better terms, they also have flagship coming. They need content. And baseball is 6 months of content. They also have the wild card round as part of a deal. I got to figure that baseball is going to want to continue to be in business with ESPN, and ESPN's going to want not fewer games, maybe even more.
ESPN's definitely sticking with MLB. They just want a more favorable deal for them.
What do you think about UFC? Like we've talked about, ESPN has been a really good partner. We've had people from TKO Group talk about how they've been a really good partner. But can ESPN afford all of this? Like we look at what ESPN did in 2024. They were paying through the nose to keep the NBA. They had to pay through the nose to re-up with the college football playoff. It comes a point where you just can't keep anything. And we've seen that with ESPN in the past. They weren't able to keep the Big Ten. They were a Big Ten partner for 30 years. And when it comes down to money, you only have so many dollars. Do they keep all the UFC and do they keep F1?
I talked to a few consultants about this, just hearing the chatter in the marketplace and also my own opinions too. ESPN wants to keep UFC the same way TKO is happy with ESPN. But up until a few months ago, UFC was looking for $800 million in their package. Now they're looking for close to $1 billion. ESPN is not paying $1 billion for UFC.
Not on its own.
Not on its entire package and keeping F1. I see UFC splitting. ESPN keeps the main package, and then a streaming service gets it, Amazon or Netflix.
Yeah, they're going to want to keep some of the pay-per-views for flagship for when that launches, but they're going to put whatever smaller package of rights is out there to a Netflix or an Amazon. I still think it's going to be Netflix because they have that tie-up, with TKO Group through WWE, and Netflix has this amazing global platform that Amazon does too with its Prime Video. Netflix is just a different animal when we're talking about, getting consumers to come in and watch your event.
I think Netflix gets it too. Mm-hmm. Amazon, they have the money as well, but they're going to be busy. They have NASCAR launching. They've got the new NBA rights package. They have a lot of stuff to figure out before they add yet another property.
Could the bigger surprise, though, be ESPN just saying we can't keep Formula One? Especially if Formula One's going to be looking to maybe double or get maybe more than 2x of the media rights fee that they're paying now. Netflix, Drive to Survive, that's what started this whole phenomenon. Like getting Americans really interested in the sport. That came through that docuseries that was on Netflix, and that helped ESPN subsequently with its live viewership. I mean, Netflix loves to own everything. They love to own something completely from soup to nuts. Could they combine Drive to Survive with maybe live rights for Formula One?
They could. I would be surprised if ESPN loses Formula One, though. Formula One's ratings have been flat. Mm-hmm. They don't have that audience that UFC does. Formula One is going to want to have that over-the-air exposure before going to a streaming service, because I don't see Netflix paying $200 million for Formula One. The idea of combining it with Drive to Survive is interesting, though.
Yeah, I mean, ESPN only paying somewhere between 75 and 90 million a season right now. Paying up 200 million a season, that's a tough ask considering all the things that they just paid up for. But another property that's on ESPN, the X Games, we have a great conversation with the new X Games CEO, Jeremy Bloom, about how that event went last weekend.